Hi, my name is Heather Haynes. This is for the Department of Education at Humphreys University. It's EDAD 350, the Trauma Informed Educator, with Professor Sarah Caskey. My presentation is on grace, which was from chapter 14. And the reason I chose this was because my district had recently done a professional development at my school about behavior problems in our classrooms, and some of the teachers were feeling not supported by our district. And after trying to figure out a chapter, grace, when I read it, really resonated that that's something we all need. So the definition of grace is a disposition to, or an act or an instance of kindness. It's a courtesy or a clemency. It's a temporary exemption from something. Some of the synonyms for grace are mercy or pardon or a reprieve. If grace is given and taken, grace can be life-altering for someone. So, who needs grace? Everyone in this entire world deserves some grace, and most of the time throughout their whole life. We need to show grace because we don't show each other enough grace. In our personal lives, in our professional lives, we don't show enough grace to our students. And if grace is shown to people early in their life, it might cause them to have a life-altering change in their life. So if they were a student who was a behavior problem, who was what you would consider going down the wrong path, if you show them grace and show them that it's okay, and you don't kick them out of your classroom, their life might be changed to a better direction than it was going in. So reality is that showing grace to someone can actually help prevent harm in the future, harm to that student, harm that bad path might cause them later on. So here are some not productive reactions to teaching students with behavior problems. Responding angrily, getting upset, yelling at them, only makes it worse. That's our downstairs brain. Being emotional, downstairs brain. Being defensive and launching a counter reaction. So when they react, you react, making sure that you react better than they react, making sure you get the last word in. None of those are good options. So it's not our natural response to respond with grace. We like consequences. We like, this is how you should behave. If you don't behave, these are your consequences. But we need to teach ourselves to be gracious, to give grace. And here are and we need to teach ourselves to access the attributes of grace. And if we access those attributes, we will be intentional about our reactions to our students. We will show patience. We will have more tolerance and understanding. We will be empathetic and understand where they're coming from and possibly why they do the things they do. And we most certainly will show kindness to them as we want them to show kindness to us. I love this quote from CeeLo Green. Tolerance, compromise, understanding, acceptance, patience. I want those all to be very sharp tools in my shed. Those are the things that we as teachers need to show our students. When we find ways to show our students grace, we empower them to do the same thing. We empower them to show grace to themselves, for their behavior, for their lack of learning, for the things that they are not happy with. And we give them the ability to show grace to others. So when we make mistakes, because no one's perfect, that they will be able to find grace and give grace to us and to other students. It's a chain reaction. It's a pay it forward. So when one person gives grace to another, that person gives it to another, and so on, until we end up with a world that doesn't look at the negative, but looks at the positive. So the positive effects on who we are have and who we encounter, that change won't happen overnight. It may not happen tomorrow. It may not happen in your classroom, but it will happen. You just may not be able to see it. So what do our students need from us? The real question about that is, what would it look like for us to show grace? They need compassion. They need us to take a step back and think, what's the most positive thing about that child? Find the positive, then you can find the grace that they need. So, when we focus on the negative, grace is most certainly hard to give to anyone. It's easy to get stuck in, well, he did this, he forgot this, he can't learn that, she can't do this, all she does is complain, she gets in trouble, they do this. It's hard when you focus on the negative to find that positive. But there is a positive for everyone, and it's our job as teachers to find that one positive. And then when we find that positive, we're able to see that child for who they are and what they can become. It's at that moment that we're able to give them kindness and the mercy that they need in order to pick themselves up, move on, and get going. If we view others with compassion and not hatred, it's going to take courage for us. Hate is easy. Kindness sometimes is not. And that takes courage, because everyone, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done, has value and deserves kindness, compassion, and grace. So there's a lot of unknowns with our students. We don't know their whole story. We don't know how their life experiences have contributed to the choices that they make. We don't know what their morning was, what their night was, because we don't see that. We only see what's in front of us. And we can react negatively to what we see and think that we're justified, or we can show a little grace and understanding, and we can model it by giving them a second or a third or a fourth chance or more. We can talk to them and determine what exactly they need from us. Certainly, most likely, not a talking to, not a timeout, not a clip down, not a go to the office. We can offer them compassion. We can listen to them and truly hear what they're trying to tell us. We can find strengths and we can compliment them on those mistakes. And it is as easy as thanking them for something they did. You can find something, be it they waited, they helped a friend, they sat quietly for a second, and you can thank them for those moments, which will show them grace. So our perspective as educators really needs to shift. Instead of saying what's wrong with you, which is very blaming, we really need to say what has happened to you. And when we say what has happened to you, we are starting to give our students grace, because we're starting to look at the why they react the way they do, not what they did. We have a huge influence on our students' lives. We help our students develop their mind and their brains. We help them in their learning. We help them socially. We help who they become. Our reactions to them help mold who they will become in the future. Our impact may not be today or tomorrow. It may not even be in this school year. We may never see our impact with our students, but we need to have faith that change is happening, and that faith we have that change is happening will help us to give grace so that that change can actually occur. So there are two mentalities that we can have in our classroom. We can have a blame mentality or we can have a grace mentality. So a blame mentality in my classroom might look like this. Nothing I do ever seems to work with this student. I've tried this strategy or that strategy and it's not working. They don't care. A grace mentality would be, I'm working hard and I'm doing my best to help this student, but I need to find more supports to find better solutions. And those supports may not just be me. It may be another person who needs to help that student and help you support that student. A blame mentality might be, this kid just doesn't want to learn. They don't care. They don't want to learn. A grace mentality is, there is something preventing this student from learning and I need to figure out what it is. I might say this if I blame students. You have until the count of 5 to sit down and get to work, or you'll go to the office. So instead, if I am more graceful in my attitude towards them, I might say I'm going to count back from 5, and then we're going to find a way to fix this problem. So instead of being in my downstairs brain, if we're going to fix the problem, I'll be back up in my upstairs brain, helping them to figure out a solution. Some other ways that we blame in the classroom is, I might say, you just read that word. Why can't you remember it? And I may not say it out loud, but maybe in my head, I say this to myself and think in my head, oh my goodness, I just taught them. How come they can't remember? So instead of blaming them, being graceful with them can look like this. It can be frustrating when we can't remember a word. Let's track those words and find a way to help you remember them. No student ever wants to not remember and not learn. It's easier to remember and learn. A blaming mentality would be if a student is running or talking too loudly in the classroom, the teacher might remove the student, write their name on the board, maybe move their clip down or a negative point, or maybe put their name under the sad face. So if we are going to show students grace, when a student is running or talking too loudly or doing something wrong in the classroom, we can redirect their behavior to a desired behavior. If they were running, could you please walk? We can ask them to go back and try it again. Could you please try with a quiet voice to walk into the class? We can also ask them to take a breath and say what they should have done instead. So making them more responsible for their behavior. And once again, showing grace would be doing that over and over again until they get it. I love this quote about grace by Anne Lamott. I do not at all understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, but does not leave us where it found us. We all need grace. We all deserve grace. Our students deserve our grace. Please give it. Thank you.